How can you cultivate and guide your energy to deliver the greatest transformation from your message? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome to Transformational Messenger TV. Have you ever been captivated by a speaker on stage or on video that you started to feel their energy and the energy of their message? Maybe that energy continued to resonate with you when you got home after an event and actually started to shift the way you live life. That's the kind of experience your audience can have when you learn to cultivate, embody, and direct the energy of your message. Vicky Delajoyo is a walking, talking poster child of how to live a path of joy. Inducted into the Women's Martial Arts Hall of Fame for her 40-plus years of teaching the Chinese arts of Tai Chi and Qigong, Vicky is the author and founder of both The Way of Joy, a spiritual fitness program, and her Rockstar speaking and storytelling program. A seasoned theater performer and host of the popular show Chi Talks, Vicky is a sought-after speaker and luminous workshop leader who inspires people from coast to coast with her embodied reminders that joy is your birthright, a fuel, not a goal, and your secret key to success. Welcome, Vicky, to the show.
Thank you so much, Ron. It's such a delight to be here.
Well, it's a delight to have you here and your joy and presence as well.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about this thing called energy that, some people who are speakers kind of struggle with.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of us understand energy in terms of how, what gets us to get up and go in the morning. Mm-hmm. But I think that there's something even more. I remember back in the 60s and 70s, then they used to talk a lot about good vibrations. So I'm always looking for what's the secret sauce behind good vibes. So that if somebody, for example, walks into a room and your immediate sense is to kind of be drawn to them.
I know that experience.
Right? You're one of those people. And then, or if somebody comes in the room and you think, I don't think so, you kind of pull back. That all has to do with an energy projection that in Qigong, the Chinese martial art of Qigong, is called Wei Qi.
Wei Qi.
Yeah. Yeah, it's externalized energy.
Yeah.
And that's something that we can really learn how to regulate, augment, and use, particularly for speakers or entrepreneurs who are wanting to talk or connect with their potential customers, or just if you're wanting to connect with your family members or your community, or you want to talk to your son who's being a little bit rebellious. How do we use our Wei Qi in this way?
Yeah. And I feel that association with joy and Wei Qi.
Yes.
And if all the speakers in the world could start to bring this in, I can see what a difference it would be to really receive their message.
Yes, I think that that's really true. And I think the other piece of it is how do they take that joy and that energy, what I think of as a fuel, and put it in their bodies so it actually lives in them. So many speakers are out there and they're speaking and they have an amazing heartfelt message, but at the same time they're, I would say, just kind of talking heads. They're not quite landing with people. And I think a lot of times it's because they disassociate. They're kind of talking from up here and they're not really grounded in who they are or where they are.
Yes. Yeah, I've been there as a speaker in the past where I get stuck in my head because I really want to make sure I communicate the right things, and then I lose touch with my body.
Yes.
What I found is that body is really what holds your emotions and the depth of your message.
Yes.
Like it's like this instrument that can resonate with it.
Exactly. We're all tuning forks.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Beautiful. Yeah. And I love that you've studied Tai Chi and Qigong because I found it as a transformational practice in my own life.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And I love how you brought that into the speaking arena.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
And help people to use that as a way to connect with the body and start to develop that instrument, right?
Absolutely. For me at this point, I don't have any difference in my mind between my Qigong practice and my speaking because it all feels like it kind of comes together. It's all part of the same. I think of speaking as the same way of accessing how do we connect with people, how do we resonate back and forth, how do we have an exchange with our audience. Whereas when you're doing Qigong, you know, you're doing it for yourself, but it's still how do you interact with the world around you? What is the resonance that you're experiencing?
Yeah. So you and I both understand Qigong and Tai Chi, but for our listeners out there, some of them don't understand what that is. Can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Qigong is a catch-all phrase like dance. It's a broad word. It actually was just invented as a word in the 50s to cover all of these different systems of energy practices that were being done in China. There's over, the last I heard, 8,000 exercises that get called Qigong. So if somebody says they practiced Qigong, they may do something entirely different from somebody else who does it over here. They can be very different forms. What they do have in common is they tend to be based on Taoist principles and Taoist concepts. And they are still, the Qigong is based on nature. It's based on Taoist principles. It's based on being able to align and unify what's called Shen, Qi, and Jing, which is to do with the heaven realm, what I was talking about earlier, about the heaven realm, which is inspiration, the human realm, which is our interconnection, our reciprocity, the ways in which we exchange our hearts, our passions, what we care about, and then the earth realm, which has to do with our ability to stand our ground, has to do with the action steps that we take, what it is that we choose to do, and also how do we compost or shift things when things aren't working. How do we discern that and then let it go, get composted so it becomes pure energy that we can use? So Qigong is basically exercise that involves movement, breath work, visualization. Depending on the system you come from, it might use just a couple of those elements, but most practices that I've encountered over the last 40 years has got all of those included. Now, there's different debate about this, but I believe that Tai Chi Chuan is one style of Qigong. So there's different styles of Qigong. There's medical Qigong, which has a whole bunch of different practices. There's Tai Chi Chuan. There's Wild Goose Qigong. There's Qigong as a spiritual practice. There's all these different schools of Qigong. Falun Gong, which was very very much in the news several years ago because of the problems they were having in China. So there's all these different styles of Qigong. But that's why I say it's like the word dance. So if I say, oh, I teach dance, well, do you teach tap? Do you teach Alvin Ailey style? Do you teach ballet? Do you teach, ballroom? The same way Qigong has these different branches, and then each of those branches have their own lineages and their own systems. So that's what Qigong is. It's about moving energy, being able to allow healing energy to come through your body in ways that support you both physically and health-wise, as well as in your mind and body and spirit. It's the unification of those.
Love it.
Yeah, it's a very profound, multi-leveled, multi-layered system.
Yeah, I didn't realize how big Qigong was.
It's huge. Yeah, it's huge. And it is a relatively new term. Yeah.
And one thing I notice about you, because you're a very dynamic speaker, is that you allow the emotions to be resonated through you. And I think part of it also is bringing that energy in and not filtering it or, like holding back certain aspects of it, but really allowing it to be felt, regardless of what that experience is.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. That's so important.
Yeah. So what is the secret? Like, where do we start? Because so many of us struggle with this when we all of a sudden are in our heads and we're nervous and, maybe it's it's a big event for us, or we've had a really tough day and maybe we're exhausted. How can we just begin to, develop and shift that energy within us?
That's such a cool question, because I think it doesn't have to be super difficult or have to be, it doesn't take years of having to study something, which of course I've done. But what I think that one of the things is that when we can, first of all, align ourselves to really feel the sense that when we're lifting up through the crown of our head, we're connecting with a greater inspiration. It's almost like you're up in the universe and you're like flying around and you're looking down at your little lives here, right? All the little ants or the people moving around. If you have that kind of big perspective, we have access to. It's what's called the heaven realm or Shen, to be able to access that sense of inspiration, of wisdom, of your higher self.
Yeah.
And then at the same time to ground through your feet, or if you're seated with your sits bones and your feet, your tailbone down to the ground, so that you're having a sense of being able to bring that energy back down, simultaneously bring that sense of confidence or that sense of having a leg to stand on, your grounding to come up through your body and fill you up with energy, especially when you were talking about when you're tired or you had a long day and the last thing you want to do is get up on stage, to be able to access that sense of strength from our home, from the place that gives us nourishment, right? The home to our food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's sounds like a very beautiful experience, but a lot of us are so caught up in the moment of our lives where the emotions, the circumstances of our life are just so big and real. How can we just start to take that step away?
So I think the first thing to do is to actually create space between your vertebrae. So if you lift the crown of your head, yes, we're both automatically going, okay, let's do this.
I'm going to be out of the shot now, I think. I just grew an inch.
So yes, lifting the crown of the head and grounding through your feet allows there to be space in between the bones of your spine, in between the vertebrae. And when we do that, chi starts to move, because chi, energy, moves in the space between. So we need to create space for it to open. Just like when you have, if you've ever looked at a stream or a river, which I'm sure you have, where the water is just moving around pebbles or stones, and it's just finding its way. In the same way, chi finds its way into those open spaces. So when we're feeling like, oh, this is really hard, or I'm really tired, and we're compressing down, or we're really anxious and we're really pulled up, when we can start to have that sense of pulling up and down simultaneously, right before, example, you go on stage, that begins the flow of energy.
Yeah, I can feel that, just the difference of just sitting regular.
Yes.
And then bringing it up.
Yes, yes.
I feel like you said there is some sort of space that invites the energy in. Wow.
Yeah, and so from there to move into, what's called the Wei Qi energy field, we can begin to breathe out that intention, because all of a sudden we're not compressing in our mind, our emotions, and our bodies. We're all of a sudden it sounds so simple, right? We all know a good posture is a good idea, but at the same time, there's something very profound about recognizing that when we're in this elongated state, we are connecting with our inspiration and our grounding simultaneously. And that's all we need when we really want to be able to show up and be present. Then dynamism is step 2.
Yeah.
Right.
Before we get to step 2, I'm just really enjoying
take
this
your time.
feeling, because and I invite you at home to try this.
Yes.
Wherever you are, just elongate your spine, take a breath. And be present to yourself and feel yourself change. It feels joyous too.
Well, yes, and that's what I have this big belief that joy is our birthright. When you think about, I remember I was once with a friend, and he said that his wife at the time was a midwife, and he said that she had just delivered a baby, and when he came over to pick her up, he was looking at the baby, and he said, "That looks just like a little baby Buddha." And she laughed and she said, all babies are baby Buddhas. And so to be able to go back to that state of being a baby Buddha where, I think even when a baby is hungry or angry or frustrated or needing something and they're crying, there's still a way in which they embrace their lives with both hands. They really grab it. And so when I talk about joy, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not just talking about, oh, I'm happy, or denial or something weird like that. I'm talking about joy as a context for all of our emotions. Yes. And that when we can really have that sense of receiving our lives, taking it on, really expressing it, then we're in a pure state of joy.
Yes. Thanks for making that distinction.
Yes.
And that's how I look at joy too. And I love the word joy, because when I think of happiness, I think of its opposite, sadness.
Right.
But when I think of joy, and the joy that I've learned, I actually took a class called Coaching Happiness with Dr. Robert Holden. And he explained this joy that you're talking about, that it has no opposite.
Right.
That it's an unconditional joy, and it can exist even with other emotions in your life.
In fact, for me, it's the context, it's the holder, it's the container of all emotions. So let's say I went to a memorial not very long ago, and a lot of the time, of course, many of us were weeping, and then we would tell stories and we'd be just roaring with laughter, remembering this person and celebrating who she was. And when you're in that place where you can kind of have that sense of letting those emotions move through you, like that river going through the rocks, I think that joy is the context, the joy of having known her allowed for the emotions of grief,
Yes.
or the sense of she died too young, the anger about her dying too young, or all of the various things that people were feeling, you know, whether they're supposedly positive or negative, all are in the context of joy.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Because that container of joy doesn't get you locked into the sorrow or the dependency. It actually allows you to be who you are.
Right.
And truly grieve or truly heal.
Yes.
So I feel it like in my own work that I do. I feel it as this energy of love as well.
Mm-hmm. And that's interesting because I think of joy and love, they're emanating from the same place in terms of the Qigong construct that I work with. They're all part of the heart. So we have heaven, human, which is heart and joy and love, and then earth, which is, you know, your grounding and the choices that you make and the actions that you take and your sense of being able to connect with the underground and your nourishment. And that's very rich.
Yeah, it's great to have those three relationships with yourself and the ability to dance between the three.
Yes.
So how can we, this is all amazing wisdom that we can incorporate as a transformational messenger. How can we bring that into our message and our practice of speaking?
One of the things that I think is the most simple thing to do is once you've aligned. Are you talking about, like, for example, before you go on stage?
Yes.
So once you've aligned, if you just put your hands on your heart and just ask yourself, what is it that your message is, and what is it, how can you show love to the people that you're speaking to? So it's not so much about, will they like me, or am I going to be okay, and how's my hair, or, you know, am I going to make the impact I want to make? It's really more about what's my intention of the heart of what I want to say, and how can I do that as a gift of love, to show love, to feel love for the people that you're speaking to. And once that feels grounded, and I really mean to lengthen the spine, feel that, then to just let yourself offer it, so that you're offering it to the people who are your listeners or your witnesses or your community.
Yeah, even that motion, taking a breath, feeling your heart, and coming out.
Yes.
It feels like you're really, really ready to serve.
And I can feel it actually in waves coming from you. So there's a ripple effect, and it starts to wave out, and that's the way chi that I feel.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
wow.
very palpable.
Tingling.
Yeah, me
Thinking
too.
about that.
Yeah, no, me too. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. So much power with the body and how it can be this channel.
Yes.
For energy.
Yes. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about energy. And I know that you shared a few things that we can do so that when we're on stage, no matter what the circumstance of our life or our energy levels, that we can bring the most of ourselves.
Yes.
But there's also this part about really cultivating that and building the muscle so that you can be a stronger conduit for the energy. Can you share a little bit more? Because I know you do a lot of work with people on that.
Yeah. There's various different types of techniques that I use when I'm working with my clients, but I think that that one of the things to really cultivate is that ability to notice when you're getting stuck, right? Because we all get stuck. I certainly do, and I think you teach what you most need to learn. But when you get stuck, or when you're feeling various parts of self-doubt, or you're in a place of resistance, I don't feel like it, or any of those types of things, to notice where that's resonating in your body. Is it, are you hunching like this, which is a way of kind of activating the backbone of your heart, but shutting off the connection. So the heart has two parts, right? So it's one system calls it the cobra and the lamb. And if you imagine a cobra, that's in the spine, in the space between the shoulders. Imagine a cobra with its hood spread. That's all about your passion and your commitment and what you want to get across and what is the message you want to give to people. And then there's the lamb, which is the part that has to do with the soft part, the interconnection, the sense of intimacy, that sense of we are one. So to be able to have those in balance is really important. So that's part of why I had you put your hands on your heart, because then that helps to soften up the part that might be feeling fearful or pulled back, and it also helps to strengthen the cobra in the back. But if you're in a place where you're kind of like tense and hunching, like I was saying before, you might be cutting off your heart energy. You might be trying to protect your heart. You're afraid that somehow you'll be rejected or something like this. Or if you notice that you're feeling your gut is just churning and churning and churning, that you're having a hard time digesting information or taking in whatever it is that you need to take in and let move through you. Or maybe you're finding, you have lower back pain because you're carrying burdens from your family, from your community, of the world, a world that's in turmoil. Notice when you're about to go on stage or when you're about to speak, where are you what are you feeling in your body? Where is it feeling tight? Is it your knees? I have a lot of speakers who experience knee pain, and that's very natural because knees are about climbing up to the new level of consciousness. And so when we get out there and we speak, I'm sure you've had this experience. You speak, and all of a sudden you find out what you think, right? You're coming out with more and more of who you are. More is being revealed, and that's a huge step because it's a risk that you take to be able to be exposed that way, to be open that way. I don't think there's anything more courageous than speakers. Speakers who really are speaking from the heart.
Yes, and allowing themselves to share their truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, authenticity isn't enough, right? We don't want to just be authentic, but just kind of like, this is how I really feel. You don't want your audience to take care of you, right? You don't want them to,
what relationship are you building?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And how are you meeting your audience?
Right. And how are you creating a reciprocity back and forth?
Yes. Because you're right. Authenticity could go to the opposite extreme where you're actually needing your audience to nurture you.
Exactly. And I've seen that happen, and it just always makes me so sad because the message gets lost.
Yeah, because now it's like everybody has this desire and focus of wanting to do something, a will, where they stop listening as deeply. But the deep authenticity of knowing that you're sharing something, but also knowing the path it'll take.
Yes.
So that it can come to a place of lesson.
Yes.
Of like, wow.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Beautiful. And so now when we start to be aware of these things, these shoulders, our breathing, our gut, our knees, and different parts of our body, what do we do once we notice that?
Well, I think that our bodies are very wise, and I think that we don't have to worry about what to do. I think we do it. So, for example, is if you find yourself hunched, normally the normal thing is to just let that go. It's just to actually just shift your posture. It can be very subtle changes. If your lower back is hurting, you might just stand up and circle your hips around a little bit, and one at a time in each direction, and just sort of start to loosen that up. If your knees are hurting, you can just put your hands on your knees, do a little self-energy work. Circling the knees is always a very good thing to do. I think that if you check in with your body, it tends to self-correct. It says, I'm tense here, and you go, oh, what do you need? And usually it'll adjust.
That's a powerful question to ask your body. What do you need?
Yes.
And receiving that, doing some body work. I had that old shoulder injury. And one of the things that Corey Center, my body worker, would always ask me to do is to really allow whatever I'm feeling, whether it's cramping, to feel it, completely feel it. And sometimes he would say, make it bigger. And that's because our bodies are saying something to us and we're not listening, right? And so me paying attention and making it bigger is saying, I am listening full on. It just allows things to be received, and sometimes it just passes. So such a powerful exercise if we really allow ourselves to feel that and then ask, what do we need?
Exactly. And to really trust that our bodies have enormous capacity to heal from everything. I mean, as you're healing your shoulder, I can see you already have more range of motion than the last time I saw you.
Incredible range of motion now compared to what I had before.
I remember. And so our bodies have that capacity to do anything if you give them optimal conditions. And part of that optimal condition is attention.
Yes. And one thing that I also learned is that any healing can be a powerful spiritual journey if you allow it to.
Yes.
And just me going through this pain and healing it has brought incredible blessings in my life. Unbelievable to me. So if you're feeling something, don't be afraid to feel it. Don't be afraid to admit that you have back pain and receive that message, because that healing process can actually help you to transform and become a much more powerful, more of a fluid conduit for your energy, right? Beautiful, beautiful. So is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience that could really help them to cultivate? And
I'd like to share with you an exercise that is called Wei Qi. And it's a great one to do when you feel like you really want to be able to come out in your shiniest self. So often people talk about that snap first impression that they have when you first see someone, and so they work on clothes or makeup or hair, and they're thinking about how are they going to present themselves from the outside in. This is something that helps this is that secret sauce I was talking about that helps you from the inside out to let that energy come out. It's a very simple exercise. In fact, you can do it in less than probably 3 minutes, and so this is something that I would love to demonstrate for you. Wei Qi. And you just stand with your feet about hip distance apart. Lift your toes up, separate them, and put them down so you have like a wide foot, like an animal's paw. Now you can have your feet parallel in this way, or you can turn them out. When you turn them out, you're opening up the yin meridians on the insides of your legs, so you're opening up a sense of receptivity of what the form has to offer you, what you're taking in. When you turn them forward, it's more of a yang stance. It's more about really allowing yourself to extend or express your energy outward. So you choose whatever feels like would be best for you right now. You're going to make sure that the knees are soft and the sits bones are connected to your heels. Relax your jaw, relax the space between your eyebrows. Lengthen the back of the neck and imagine that your tailbone is a kangaroo's tail resting on the ground, and lift the crown of your head way up towards the sky so you have a lot of space in between the bones of your spine. You're going to cross your arms, doesn't matter which one's on top, inhaling up and exhaling all the way out to the sides. And you're going to just do this 3 times, inhaling up and exhaling out, and just letting yourself relax in the center of this sphere. One more time, inhaling up, exhaling out. Then make fists with your thumbs on the inside of the fists and ground down into the earth. Then relax your hands, turn one direction or the other. It doesn't matter which side you do first. 3 times. Just imagine that you're sending energy in all directions behind you and in front of you as you do this movement. Then make fists with your thumbs on the inside and ground. And then turn in the other direction. Inhale. Exhale as your arms go down, and inhale when they come up the center line of your body. And ground. And then bring your hands to your lower abdomen. Place your left hand on top and just take a moment to notice whatever you notice. Feel whatever you feel. This is a great exercise to do anytime you're about to step out and take a risk, whether it's going on stage as a speaker or going to talk to somebody that you feel a little bit shy or intimidated by, or anytime you feel like your energy field, you want to be really centered and empowered in the center of who you are. It's important when you practice Wei Qi to really feel like your solar plexus is relaxed and that your space between your shoulder blades is relaxed, and you want to imagine that your clavicles, your collarbones are smiling. So it's almost like you have wall-to-wall shoulders. And when you do the movement, to let yourself be very comfortable in your legs. They're about feet hip distance apart, and to really relax the space behind your knees so you allow energy to travel from the earth. Remember, earth is the source of your nourishment. It's the source of what gives you confidence. It's also the source of how we compost energy that we don't really want anymore. So let's say you have certain patterns that you don't like that are in your life, your emotional patterns or your brain mutter looping around or whatever, that can be flushed down into the earth, compost, become neutral energy, and then you can use it. So it's important to keep the knees soft when you're standing and to let yourself imagine that the energy field that you are expands exponentially, which it does.
Yeah, such a powerful exercise to imagine that we are bigger than this physical body that we think is so small compared to the size of the universe.
I know.
Energetically, we can allow ourselves to expand and receive so much.
Yes, and when you think about it, I mean, our whole body is, made up of microcosmic universes, right? Each cell in our body is a microcosm of that greater whole. Mostly space, right? Deepak Chopra says 99.99999% space, and then these little moving particles within that space. And when we start to think that from our bone marrow all the way out to the hair on our skin, we're made up of space.
Wow.
That's quite a concept.
It is.
It gives us a lot of room to breathe, a lot of room to express, a lot of room to discover.
Beautiful. So, Vicky, when I see you on stage, I feel like you are this amazing translator. That you can translate all of these emotions and messages and stories through your whole being. Like, you're a very dynamic speaker.
Thank you.
Yeah, have you always been that way?
No, not even close. As a little kid, I was so shy. I was scared to even meet other kids. So my mom, in her infinite wisdom, decided to have me audition for a summer stock road show of Finian's Rainbow. Because I look so Irish. Anyway, so she had us. I auditioned for this show. I got in as one of the little kids in the show, and I fell in love. I mean, even though I was so shy, there was something about getting into characters and things like that. So for years, I wanted to be an actor. But it's interesting that my fantasy, when I would have fantasies as a kid, it would always be that I would be on a TV show like here, and then I'd be able to speak about a message. So it's so funny. So even then, I didn't really love the acting part of it. But what I did love was the tools that I learned on how to convey, how to become more charismatic on stage, how to step out of myself, and how to really, and it's not, of course, out of myself, it's ultimately step into myself, but step into myself with confidence and with some, hopefully, degree of poise. So thank you for those compliments. I love to speak now, and I love to be on stage. I have a one-woman show that I do. I'm in a theater company that performs a lot, so I do a lot on stage, but it's something that I worked really hard to do, and it's really only in the last 5 years that I feel like I've owned it in a whole other level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is why now I started to work with other speakers, because I was watching how often speakers, like we were saying before, become kind of like talking heads. And so I wanted to really look at, because I believe in the messages of the people who are transformational messengers are critical. I really want to see the planet paradigm shift from competition and oppression into cooperation and reciprocity. This is a vision that I have that I want to see happen in my lifetime. So I'm on it. So one of the ways to do that, I think, are by transformational messengers, which is why your show is so very important to me. It really is. I feel like it's really, really critical that we get to hear from one another in these transformative ways.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I also appreciate you, because a lot of times we understand our message and we want to convey it. And we do that from a mental standpoint, like here are some concepts, here are tools. But when we allow ourselves to fully embody it, and allow that energy to flow, it's just a different level.
That's right.
And I know that you teach that. And what's the secret?
So there's several of them, but the one that I think that's most important that I love to teach my community about is a concept that's an old theater concept called show, not tell. And so it's really, how do you invite your audience or your listeners or your witnesses or your community into your story like they're coming into the movie, you're painting the picture.
I love when you said come into the movie, because a lot of times we think it's a one-dimensional, one-directional type of communication. but it's like you're inviting them in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what are the best theater, live performance, music, theater experiences is when you have that sense of exchange going back and forth. That energy is flowing back and forth between you and your audience. Mm-hmm. That's why I ended up calling my my program Rockstar, because I wasn't thinking so much of like, I'm a star. I was really thinking about when you go to a rock concert, that there's a vibration that happens, right? Mm-hmm. Your whole body is responding because of the loudness of the music and so forth. But there's a vibration that happens, and that vibration is what I'm really wanting to capture. Mm-hmm. So when you go into show not tell, you're really looking at how do you begin to live that moment? How do you begin to express it so that people are there with you? You're not telling people about it. Oh, this happened and then that happened and then that happened. You're saying, now I'm walking onto the beach and I see such and such. You'd be able to bring people in so that they go onto that beach with you or whatever you happen to be talking about. Yes.
I love that. I never understood rock star speakers until you said that.
Yeah.
And you're right. When I go to a concert, the singer or the band isn't there just to perform. They're there to connect, because I hear them a lot of times. They're singing and then the audience is singing with them and they grab the mic and they point it to them and they allow people to sing in.
Yes.
And that is a powerful metaphor for being a different level of a speaker.
Yeah.
A deep connector.
And it was one evening and I was just sort of thinking about this, and I'm fairly new to teaching speakers, although we've had some amazing showcases and it's been incredible sold out programs. But one of the things that really occurred to me when I was first thinking about how do I convey what it is that I want to teach, and it's how can you make your audiences feel what you're talking about, not just hear the words, but actually feel it on a really internal place, because that's where change happens. That's where your message starts to get carried forward. That's what creates what's called the ripple effect, right? In Qigong, there's a concept that's called pebble in the lake, where you drop a pebble into an imaginary lake and it ripples out. So that's what we do as speakers, is we're dropping a pebble in the lake that ripples out. As that person leaves, or different people leave and carry that message forward, however they do, whether they're talking, going home to their little dog, or they're, or they're actually going out there and making big changes on a global level, whatever it happens to be. This ripple effect that happens only through the synergy of connection and through that heart and joy energy that we were talking about earlier.
Yes, yes. So that's the secret of show not tell.
That's the secret of show not tell, is to be able to go into that place where instead of just talking about something, give a little dynamism, show a little bit, of like, instead of saying, oh, well, so I went to the grocery store and I was super shy and I didn't know what I was going to say, so I just looked up at the grocery clerk and I made this big mistake. I said to the grocery clerk, instead of doing that, saying, I'm 5 years old. I step into the grocery store. I'm so shy. So I don't even have to say I'm so shy. I can just go like this. I can say, Mr. Grocery Man, would you give me... You can give just a little bit. It's brush strokes. I'm not talking about big razzle-dazzle, jazz hands, theater techniques. I'm talking about just being able to brush stroke little moments where people can enter into that place with you and be you.
I love that.
For that
it's
moment.
Where you kind of leave some blanks where they fill it in.
Yes.
And that engages them.
Yes, and then you also show it in your own body. You let yourself express it. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I love to coach people in that. It's just, I get to watch speakers just blossom with it, because it's fun, it's easy, it's their story. Everyone knows how to tell their own story, but how do you do it in a way that's dynamic? It's superb. It's a blessing.
Especially when you come from joy.
Yes.
Right? Because then it's not, I got to perform this right or else it's not going to look right. It's like, just be it.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of my favorite pieces of feedback was one of my speakers said, I used to be really bored when I told my story. I would just tell the story again and again. And now I love telling it. I can't wait to tell it. And that lets me know that she's dropped into her heart of the heart of the matter, what matters to her, in a way that makes her alive and then makes her audiences lean forward. Yeah.
Yes. Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing so much wisdom today and joy, and helping us to start to cultivate and master this thing called energy that we have, that we are bigger than what we physically feel like we are, that we can really expand that energy into a room and allow people into the story, not just be there to be the performer.
Yes, absolutely.
And so Thank you for those powerful paradigms and the amazing exercise so that we can start to really resonate our message. And thank you for joining us in this amazing episode today. If you start to cultivate and grow that practice of being an instrument of the energy that your message holds, you're going to make a bigger impact. You're going to create deeper connections with your audience, and you're going to bring them in. So thank you for joining us, and remember to always shine your light because the world needs it. See you next time.
Bye.